Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. We'll get started with our hearing. I want to thank Mr. Comey, James Comey, the former director of the FBI, for appearing today before the committee to talk with us about Crossfire hurricane and anything else the committee would like to speak with him about. So, give a little brief introduction of why we're here and what we're trying to accomplish. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is a tool that's been around for a very long time for our intelligence community, the FBI, to make sure that when foreign agents, terrorists, or agents of a foreign government are in our country, they can be surveilled if they're doing things that are threatening to our national security. I think this legislation goes all the way back to the 70s, and it's been used a lot. It's been used in terrorist cases when we suspect someone of being a terrorist. Under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, we have the legal authority to surveil those people. And you can get a warrant under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act to actually follow an individual around. And I would say, at least on our side, the FISA system is very much in jeopardy. The Carter Page warrant application is very unnerving. The Crossfire hurricane, Crossfire razor investigations, I think have really shaken confidence in the system. And my goal as chairman, and this will go into the next Congress no matter who's in charge, Senator Feinstein, is that FISA needs to be reauthorized, but right now, without substantial reform, I don't think we could get it reauthorized. And my goal is to understand how the system failed, how it got off the rails, and be able to assure the American people and ourselves that what happened here will not happen again. So the Horowitz report is sort of the basis of what I've been trying to do. Mr. Horowitz is the Inspector General at the Department of Justice, and he did a deep dive into the FISA warrant applications of Carter Page, and he found 17 significant errors in admissions, and the committee in its work has found some other things that were pretty disturbing. So we've tried to use the foundational document, the Horowitz report, and I want to thank Mr. Horowitz and his team for their thorough examination of the FISA Carter Page warrant application. They found evidence that the primary Russian subsource was a single individual. They found interviews in January and March of the subsource where he basically said the dossier, which was central to getting the warrant against Carter Page, was bar talk, hearsay, and quite frankly, much worse. We found that the primary subsource, a gentleman named Igor, was actually suspected by the FBI of being a Russian agent all the way back to 2009. And what happened here is, as a result of this information, the FISA court issued an order rebuking the FBI and Department of Justice conduct. And where's that final paragraph there? This is what the FISA court. The FBI's handling of the Carter Page applications, as portrayed in the OIG report, was antithetical to the heightened duty of candor described above. The FISC expects the government to provide complete and accurate information in every filing with the court. Without it, the FISC, the FISA court, cannot properly ensure that the government conducts electronic surveillance for foreign intelligence purposes only when there's a sufficient factual basis. So we're trying to find out, as the Committee of Oversight of the Department of Justice and the FBI, how this happened and to make sure it never happens again. So the basis of our inquiry started with the Horowitz report, an independent agency within the Department of Justice, and we're going to look at the FISA rebuke and see if we can find a way to convince the court in the future that this problem has been solved very quickly. Carter Page was on the Trump campaign team, He was one on the national security team, and here's what we learned. If you've had a photo with President Trump, you probably spent more time with President Trump than Carter Page. Carter Page is an interesting character, but the FBI sought a FISA warrant against Carter Page for suspected ties to Russian intelligence operatives. They were unable to get the warrant approved internally just based on contact with Russian operatives. Mr. Page denied knowing half the people, and there's yet to be any indication that he was lying. And the other group that he was associated with were foreign intelligence operatives of Russia, but he told the FBI early on, I was working with the CIA. That's why I knew these people. And the CIA confirmed to the FBI that was true, but later on, Mr. Kleinsmith doctored the information coming over from the CIA to say that Mr. Page was not working with the CIA. Why is that important? If the court had known that these contacts had a legitimate purpose, there would have been no basis for the warrant. How would you like, in your case, for the government to alter a document that was exculpatory to you? And that's what happened, and that's a criminal act that's going to continue to be prosecuted, I hope. But during the course between October and June of October of 2016 and June of 2017, the dossier that was central and essential to getting the warrant had so many holes shot through it that it became almost a joke. The point is, without the Russian Steele dossier, there would have been no warrant because they tried just based on Russian context. It wasn't until the dossier appears on the scene that they were able to go and get a warrant. The dossier was prepared by a man named Christopher Steele, who was hired by Fusion GPS, that was being paid by the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign to do opposition research against candidate Trump. He had a subsource. We didn't know until now it was a single individual that he hired named Igor, and we now know that Igor was suspected by the FBI back to 2009 as being a Russian agent / spy, a national security threat to the United States. That's the man that gave all the material to Mr. Steele. I will go in pretty deep detail about how the dossier over time not only became unreliable, it just lost all credibility, and the court was never told of the information that was obtained between October and June. The FBI ignored exculpatory evidence, altered documents from the CIA, had interviews where the subsource disavowed the accuracy of the document, and never submitted any of that information to the court. This, to me, is a stunning failure of the system to work. And I will end with this. Warrant applications are non-adversarial. If they're trying to get a warrant against you or your family, there is no lawyer there to protect you. The court has to rely on the agents, the department, to be honest and forthright when it comes to obtaining a warrant against an American citizen, criminally, or even in the FISA arena. So here's the question. What do we do when we find that the warrant application relied upon a document that was fundamentally unsound, that the FBI ignored all the warning signs about this document, misled the court about the author and the reliability of the document, and over and over and over again it was used to keep an investigation of an American citizen alive that we now know had 17 irregularities? What do? We just say, well, that was bad, that's the way it goes. Does anybody get fired? Does anybody go to jail? And I'm saying this to my Democratic friends: if it happened to us, it could happen to you. Every American should be worried about this. This is not just an abuse of power against Mr. Page and the Trump campaign. This is a system failure. And you could be next. So the joint effort of this committee, in my view, should be to make sure this never happens again, starting with finding out who did it, who's responsible, Apparently, everybody's responsible, but nobody's to blame is not the right answer. So my goal is that we can have a deep dive and understand how this happened and working together to assure the American people it never happens again to any political campaign of any party, and that the FISA system can survive this very sad chapter. We're turning the page on a very dangerous chapter in the history of the FISA program. We're trying to start anew, and the only way we can start anew is to find out what happened and hold people accountable. We're not prosecutors here. There are people out there who do have prosecutorial authority. We'll let them decide what to do, independent of us. But it is a responsibility of this committee to try to restore trust in a program that we all need. And we will start that endeavor seriously today and continue until we get to the bottom of it. I have two documents I'd like to introduce for the record. I have an Office of Intelligence Attorney statement. This is the DOJ lawyer that signed off on the FISA application, and the letter says, the attorney advises that had he/she been aware of the significant errors and omissions identified by the OIG Inspector General and the errors in the Woods process, he/she would not have signed the Carter-Page FISA applications. The OI attorney further advises that he/she is not aware of any additional errors or omissions in the Page FISA applications or in the Crossfire hurricane investigation more generally that were not identified in the OIG report. This is yet another person saying, if I know then what I know now, I wouldn't have signed this report. Horowitz did a really good job. Rosenstein and Sally Yates said to this committee who signed the warrant application, if I knew then what I know now, I would not have signed this application. This is the lawyer that prepared it saying the same thing. Thank you, Senator Feinstein.